Welcome. Good afternoon. I'm Kristy Winkler, Managing Director of the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, or Culture for short, and the moderator of today's session. Culture's mission is to promote and enhance the global skills opportunities for all learners and educators, and you may have heard about us through our annual World Languages Day event in October. I'd like to welcome you to GSU's Spring 2023 Global Career Series. This series features representatives from globally connected organizations to talk to students and recent graduates about rewarding opportunities to work in global spaces, either in Atlanta or abroad. We hope that you will feel inspired to pursue global careers, internships, and volunteer opportunities offered by these organizations. This series is organized each semester by the Global Atlanta Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, University Career Services, GSU's Global Studies Program, and Study Abroad programs. To learn more, please visit the websites listed in the chat. Today's session will focus on careers for bilinguals in Metro Atlanta, and we are absolutely delighted to bring you representatives from the Latin American Association, GSU College of Education, SpanGlish, Multilingual Agency, and Medical Interpreter Network of Georgia. Our panelists today are Catherine Warren, Dr. Paula Garrett-Rucks, and Marcelo Cedeño. In just a moment, I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their organizations. First, I'd like to go over some housekeeping items. So first off, the session is being recorded. We ask that you keep your mics muted to reduce any noise during the session. And after the presentations, there will be a moderated Q&A. So we have prepared some questions for the panelists, but we also want to hear from you, the audience. So please do type your questions in the chat at any time. And now let's learn more about our panelists. Catherine, we can start with you if you'd like to share your screen.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Catherine Warren, and I am Operations Manager here at the Latin American Association, and under me falls our volunteer programming as well as our internship program and our AmeriCorps Vista program, which I'll get into a little bit about in a second. The mission of the Latin American Association is to empower Georgia's Latinos to adapt, integrate, and thrive. And we envision Georgia where there is an opportunity for all. We do that through various services here at the LAA. But I like to say that the LAA is here for the whole family. So you can see like how our different services can affect and impact change within a family system and then ultimately within a community. So we have a lot of different opportunities for folks to get involved and learn about bilingual careers through internships and volunteer opportunities. Then a little bit about our impact. So this is our live counter. So far we've impacted 34,000 lives through our different departments. So those are departments on the pie graph: youth services, economic empowerment, immigration services, and family stabilization and well-being. And that number we're hoping will hit over 45,000 individuals by the end of our fiscal year at the end of June. So my recruiting needs for this year, for this summer in particular, are interns. At this moment, I do have some paid internship positions with our youth team, and I'll get to that on the next slide. And then I'm also recruiting for AmeriCorps Vista, which is it's a gap year essentially, or it can be looked at as a gap year. It's a volunteer service year, but there is a stipend and benefits associated with those roles. So I have a plethora of internships. The top one with youth services for the summer will be paid. There is a stipend, and I can get you information about that stipend if you're interested in this role. And it's going to be mostly in June, from the 5th to 29th in DeKalb and Gwinnett counties, working directly with students, middle school and high school aged. But we have a lot of different internships that will be offered this summer, and they will also be offered this fall and spring as well. So please feel free to take a screenshot or a picture if you have any interest. And then I'll show my contact information at the end of the presentation. Then we have our AmeriCorps Vista program, really exciting. This is a huge recruitment need we need. We ask that our AmeriCorps Vistas commit to serving 1 full year as a volunteer with us. And it's a great work experience, especially if you cannot find a way into a career and want to get exposure to government work or nonprofit work and really getting those connections and that experience. I was a Vista myself, and I have friends that were Vistas, and we've all found different niches within kind of public service-based careers. So I have an opening in our operations team and our marketing communications team as well. The stipend for that is approximately $1,200 to $1,400 a month, I think, before taxes, but I can double check on that. And we have a great team that you work with, and we're working on building out this program to have some more benefits as well. But if that's interesting at all to you, let me know, and I'm happy to talk with you more about that. Career paths at the LAA that you can kind of explore include nonprofits and government, human and social services. If you go back to that pie chart, the biggest section of the pie chart was our family well-being department, and that is our social workers. So anyone interested in social work, the LA is a great place to get some real elbows deep, hands-on experience. We also work in education with youth and adults. So working in schools here in the Atlanta area and Northwest Georgia, and then also teaching adults digital skills, job training skills, and then also English as a second language. My colleague Caitlin will be on to talk about that on the Friday webinar. And then we have a small immigration department, so great for people looking into law. Nonprofits are somewhat of a business, so learning about what it takes to run an organization, a business, and then something unique for nonprofits as a career path that I had no idea about when I was in school is fundraising. You have a very lucrative career, successful career, and fundraising, and it's greatly needed in the nonprofit industry. Then I just like to show some of our clients because I like to show real pictures instead of stock pictures so that you understand kind of the lives that we get to impact here. And really, this is what guides me through my workday. I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, so I don't get like the one-on-one with people all the time, but knowing that folks have kind of been given a better chance because of the work that our organization is doing really keeps me going every day. Then one thing for folks who are bilingual, I like to encourage people to keep up their language practice. So one thing we have here at the LAA is our coffee hour intercambio or language exchange. And we have that every other Wednesday from 5:30 to 6:30. So if anyone wants to practice their English or their Spanish, we tell everyone to come here and do it with us for free. We have a vendor selling coffee and snacks, and it's a great way just to get involved and practice your language skills within the community. We do 30 minutes of practice in English with native Spanish and English speakers, and then 30 minutes of practice in Spanish with Spanish and English native speakers as well. And then I have my contact information here for you all. So take a picture, screenshot of that. Email is the best for me, but then you can also text that number. And I'm reviewing resumes between now and mid-April for our summer internship. So if you're interested, please send me an email. I look forward to hearing from anyone who's interested. Thank you. And let me stop my share.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was a lot of information. I did see a question in the chat, so maybe we can get to that as one of our first questions after everybody has a chance to present. So Marcelo, if you would like to go next.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Catherine, for your presentation. I've had the chance also to participate in some events in the past with Latin American Association, and I would really encourage everyone to take a look at this organization because it's an amazing, organization to be involved with. My name is Marcelo Cedeño. I'm very grateful and honored to be here. This is my second time. Um, I was here 2 years ago. I was invited 2 years ago because I was and I still am the president of MING. That's the Medical Interpreter Network of Georgia. Both a medical interpreter and also a court certified interpreter. And I graduated from Kansas State University with a degree in languages. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life up until I was in my early 20s. I decided just by accident, I was introduced to the interpretation and translation profession, and I loved it from the very first moment I encountered this profession. I came here to the United States to study English, as a matter of fact, but I never thought, oh my gosh, I can actually get a job using my language skills. And I decided to go to international business at first because not thinking I want to do business internationally, but I was thinking with international business, I can use my language skills. And so when I learned that I could actually use my language skills as a profession and being an interpreter, I took on that chance, and it's been almost 20 years, and it's been great for me. But as of last year, I had the chance to purchase two interpretation and translation agencies. One's called SpanGlish Agency, and the other one is called Link to Spanish. That was our most recent acquisition. And what we do is with both agencies, we provide language access to different government organizations like the court system in different counties, the federal courts, and not just for Spanish, but we have all languages, not only in person. We have a network of interpreters that work all around the country, because with technology now, and especially after COVID and Zoom and all work being virtual, we have a lot of core assignments or medical appointments that are done remotely, and you can be anywhere. I've been traveling and interpreting from Europe. From I was in Ecuador for 2 weeks. I was able to work from there as well. But we serve, for example, our main client is the Forsyth County. We serve the school district. We serve the core system in here, also Cobb County and other counties. And what we do is we go out in the community. We try to recruit people who are bilingual, not just for Spanish, but for any language. If I mean, there are big communities, all around Georgia. So we have, for example, a big need for Hindi. We have a big need for Arabic, Somali, Korean, etc. And right now there is a shortage of interpreters in Georgia. So one of our jobs, both as an agency and through the Medical Interpreter Network of Georgia, we try to go out to the community, get to know individuals who are bilingual, but who are also interested in getting a career, in languages. I know a lot of the people I work with, they are passionate about languages. Interpreting is something that comes naturally for most people who are in this profession. As I like to say, it's like a workout for your brain when you have to uh, listen to something in one language and process it and repeat it into a different language. If you do it the right way, it's incredible for your brain. It's it's like a workout, and so a lot of interpreters that I know, they feel that this profession is fascinating for that being one of the reasons, but also there is so much that you can see and experience as an interpreter. For example, we work in court, so we can, right now we are doing a murder trial, which I'm actually working on that trial, but I'm taking a break this afternoon to be able to be here. But we have a murder trial. Sometimes we have different types of cases. If you're interested in the legal system, if you're interested, I don't know, in crime, we are in the action as interpreters. If you're not into that, but you like the medical setting, you can be a medical interpreter. You can do translations. We use a lot of language experts for different projects. We do subtitles, we do voiceover, we do teaching, translations, interpretations, and we have people in our office that work full-time. We have full-time interpreters. We also have contractors. So the advantage of being a contractor is that you can manage your own time. You're a freelance interpreter. You can work the hours that you want, and normally, if you're a freelance interpreter, you make a little more money than if you're full-time. And you can have your own clients, and there is really a lot of work in the state of Georgia right now for interpreters and translators. The profession is the fastest growing profession, the profession of interpreters and translators, according to the U.S. Department of Labor. So if you're interested in learning more about interpretation and translations, we have some big clients, hospitals, also, as I said, schools, court systems, attorneys. We even have companies that are in tourism that use our services for translations, to translate their marketing, paperwork, and pamphlets. And this is something that we take a lot of pride in our job. We like to present our client with a final product that is of great linguistic quality. And so we're always looking for people who are, as I said, passionate about languages and who are interested in getting into a career in languages. As I said already more than once, there's a big need for language experts in the state of Georgia. So I think if you were thinking about this career, I can tell you there's a big market out there.
Thank you so much, Marcelo. And if you want to put your contact information in the chat, or links to websites. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Garrett-Rucks.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for the great information. I'm here taking notes myself to share with students in the World Language Education Program, to share with their high school students too, about different opportunities. It's great to know. So hi everybody, I'm Dr. Garrett-Rucks, and I'm going to talk to you about the GSU World Languages Teacher Certification Programs. There we go. So I guess the pitch is, do you like to travel? Consider a career in world languages. I feel like many of you as an undergraduate, so many options. You like languages, you like other cultures. And my idea was to teach for a couple of years before going back to graduate school. And honestly, I got teaching certified in California, and I was going to teach for 2 years, but then I met these cute freshmen and I was like, oh, maybe I'll give this 4 years before I go to graduate school. I'll just wait and see this one batch grow up from freshman to senior year. And then as I started applying for grad school, I was like, no, no, no. Now there's the next group under them. I'll just do one more year and watch them grow, because it was so amazing between freshman to senior year, such big changes. And then it was during that year where I was like, oh, I get what's going on. I'm getting sucked into this, because I couldn't wait for the next group to go. And I thought, all right, well, maybe now I'm going to take a break from teaching to get my doctorate degree and to go back to teaching. Only I haven't done that yet, but I would like to provide you some opportunities about that. So here's a group of students I took to Paris, because when you're a teacher, typically you work 190 days a year, 180 days of contact time. And there are great companies like EF Tour, where if you get 6 students to travel with you, they provide you the all of the accommodations, you get a tour guide, and you get to go for free for every 6 students you have. Just so much fun. And because I had, these are all pictures from my 5 years of being a teacher, where I went to Korea, saw the Great Wall of China, went to Kenya. Here's me in a, well, actually, this isn't me in a Maasai warrior, but it's a picture of someone who looked like me with a Maasai warrior that I could find online. More in China, Mombasa. We went to Cusco, went to Machu Picchu, and a very immature teacher at the time, I'm like, there's a place called Lake Titicaca. I want to go just because I think it's a funny name. Oh, it's my truth from the past. Very interesting in Bolivia, learning about the oil industry, the incredible education system set up in the area. In Mexico and San Diego is where I taught. So lots of fun. And I got to tell you, of all the different jobs I've done between point A and point B, wildlife biology, working in business, working as an administrative assistant at a university, teachers, world language teachers, they're the funnest. And I'm like, if you're going to have colleagues, they're great colleagues to have. So that's where I really fell in love with the teaching profession. Getting to the nitty gritty, I see my job here at Georgia State as almost like a matchmaker. I work with the different district coordinators, and a lot of people at this point are coming into the program. They're already working in the field and they have a provisional certificate. And I like to advise everyone, if you tried teaching for a year and you didn't like it, nobody likes teaching their first 2 years. It's a very humbling experience to learn about what it's like to work with, to manage classrooms. But in any event, after you've done it for 2 or 3 years and you're certified, once a Georgia State Panther, once you're a Panther Pride in the World Languages program, always in it. If you're still not enjoying it after your 3rd year teaching, I recommend to people, come see me. You're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong district. You're in the wrong school. Don't think that you don't like teaching just because of one situation. It's like dating. If you thought that you were going to marry the first person you dated, wouldn't married life look horrible? It might take a while to find the right match for you. And my goal really is to help you find the place that's right for you. And what might be of most, so I work with APS, Clayton, Cobb County, DeKalb County, Forsyth, Fulton, Gwinnett, Henry, and I work with the district coordinators. I have this Padlet where I've put together all of the information. They email me regularly looking for teacher candidates. I find that in February, they start looking for teachers. And if you're not certified, that's a tough time of year to get a job. In May, there's a big scramble as people are signing contracts. As life changes, that's a good time to apply. But really, August 1st, when schools start here in Georgia, is when they are the most desperate. And that's a great time to find a job before you're certified, to try it. I think $50,000 a year you've just graduated with a 4-year degree, this is a starting salary. Let me zoom in on that. So I went to Clayton County, which is not known as one of the higher paying school districts, but I wanted to show you when you start out, if you don't have your teaching certificate, starting pay 42,000, you have no idea what you're doing as you enter the classroom other than your own experiences. If you have to have a bachelor's degree and show proficiency in the language. And once you get certified, the starting pay is 50,000. I like to encourage people who are getting certified in our program, as I'm going to show you in a minute. Certification only, your pay is 50,000. However, once you have your master's degree, which is only 4 additional classes, it jumps up 5,000. You can get to 55,000. And then there's a specialist degree. Georgia State has a great doctoral program that I recommend to a lot of my students, but I say, hey, depending on where you're at, the specialist degree at some colleges is 1.5 years. Why not get that additional degree? And all of a sudden, it's probably going to happen about year 3 or year 4 of your teaching. You're going to be making around $65,000 a year, teaching for 180 days a year and working 190 days out of a 365 a day, days in a year. And there's a reason why you want those breaks. Trust me. Putting your heart and your soul when you work with people, it can be exhausting. So let me show you APS. APS does not differentiate if you have the certification or not in the beginning. Starting pay is 51,000. Once your first year, if you're coming in with a master's, it's nearly 56,000. And I tell people, let's get a 10-year plan. If you can make it through those first 2 years, if that's your disposition, if you can get through lots of Sunday nights, like, oh my gosh, tomorrow it's showtime. It's 2 years like that a lot, because it's so intense when you're a beginning teacher. And it's through the support of the other teachers that most people survive. So let's get a 10-year plan and make sure that you have your specialist or your doctorate. You would be making equivalently today of around 75,000. This does not include if you're coaching, if you're tutoring. There's so many different ways to increase your salary. And so people talk about how bad the teaching salary is, but given the time frame and a lot of summer jobs that people can get, because once people know you're a teacher, it's like they give you this wink and you're in the secret club. Like, wow, you've taught for especially once it's over 2 years, like, wow, you've been teaching for 2-3 years. You have amazing, courage, first of all, to do that, resilience, resourcefulness, and it's pretty easy to get summer jobs for teachers. And for teachers who leave the profession, I think that's something to be aware of these days. We know that teacher burnout, and I deal with a lot of teachers, the people who come in and they're like, oh, in the beginning, I find out my students' favorite food, and then I bring them on their birthdays, their favorite food for every one of them. And I'm always like, that's great. I'm so sorry, I have a dog. Just a second. Kira. Oh, sorry, I didn't press mute. I pressed stop share. Am I still sharing my screen?
You are.
I'm so sorry about that loudness. Hope you can still hear. But realistically, it's between 3 and 5 years. I have this loving, passionate person getting favorite foods for all our students. And I'm like, that's great. You're at risk of burnout. You have to self-regulate. You can't give it all your first couple years teaching. So that's kind of my role with you too, is like, you're such a great teacher. We don't want you to quit because you're burnt out, is to remind people in the program, the weekends are yours. You have to take care of yourself. You can't give students 120% or you will quit in the first couple of years. So kind of being realistic through the whole program is what I do. So you can easily get a provisional certificate with your bachelor's degree. And you have to be aware that you are entering a school that is hiring you on an emergency situation, and that might not represent what real teaching looks like. But you have to have your bachelor's degree, evidence of language proficiency, and they give you 3 years to complete a certification program. And that's where I come in. And sometimes there are extensions that are given. but I think one of the leading things for teaching right now, which if you are not interested in helping other people, it's not the career for you. If you're all about the vacation, which let me tell you, I love vacations and seeing the world, but you have to have a core empathy, or students will see that you're not really in it for them, and they'll make you leave the profession. Their young learners are very attuned to where people's intentions are. But if you're in it and you're finding it rewarding, you're finding the profession, the retirement system is incredible. This is one of the few places that has a good retirement system. I moved here from another state and I opted out of the teacher retirement system of Georgia, only to quickly learn that it is about #1 in the nation. It's solid. There are incredible people watching over this retirement system. And once you've worked 10 years, you're, oh gosh, I don't even know if it's that long. Less than 10 years, you are guaranteed medical insurance for the rest of your life. And once you get to a certain level, like you'll get maybe like 20% of your salary for the rest of your life once you're in for 10 years. The people who I talk to the most are the people who started young and they've been teaching for 30 years. And so they're getting, I stopped at 10, but they're making like $100,000 a year as a teacher after they've taught for 30 years. And they give it the retirement to you based on your top 3 years. So often towards the end, you'll see people who are about to retire, who are coaching, who are doing all the supplemental things. So they're making like $120,000 a year for 3 years. And then you get 60% of your salary. So a lot of teachers I know, I'm like, okay, so you're getting paid $4,000 a month. And I'm looking at my retirement system that I've done for 10 years. And I'm like, there is no way I will ever get $4,000 a month return from my, well, I don't think so, from my investments. Like it really is one of the most incredible retirement systems. So anyway, the World Languages Teaching Program, we have a Bachelor's of International Education, which is 120 credits. If you're an undergraduate right now, I still recommend just take one class. If you're like, you know, I'm going to be a diplomat when I graduate, that's great. But if just in case that doesn't work out and you're thinking you might want to have teaching as a backup plan while you figure out how to get that job as a diplomat, having just one methods class is going to help you tremendously. It helps me get to know you so that I can look like I'm networked with all of the districts. And when they say they want someone, I can say, hey, I've worked with this person. I know she's graduating this year. She's had a methods class with me, or he, and they're incredible. So it's a good thing to take one undergraduate class. Otherwise, to graduate with your degree, there will, in this day and age, be teaching jobs available. Is it going to be the job of your dream? Without having someone to advocate for you, it could be a very challenging situation. Come back and you can get certified only with 18 credits. Or if you want to get the master's that I recommended, we've built the program so that while getting your master's, you know how I said there were 4 extra classes you have to take, you can either get your ESOL endorsement with that. So you can also be an ESOL, work with speakers of other languages, multilingual children who are learning to become proficient in English, or you can get an urban education endorsement if you're one of the people who you want to go into underserved communities and really support students. There's that option. Dual language immersion endorsement if you're interested in teaching in a dual language immersion school where the kids have half the day in English, half the day in the target language. Come see me. I've got so much to tell you about that. Or let's say, like me, I was a French teacher, and I probably would have wanted 4 extra classes in graduate French work to improve my French. You are welcome to do that as well. So if you want to know more about the program, we have, you could go to tinyurl.com/teachlanguagesgsu. And We have a social justice emphasis in our curriculum, and you could listen to one of our students. There's a videotape talking about him, and he doesn't like me to say this, but I would like to tell you that Ryan Ayers was formerly a medical doctor for several years and advanced to become a surgeon, but he missed working with people who weren't knocked out while he was doing surgery, and came back and became a teacher. It's incredible, the people who are, you will meet the other teachers in the program who've come from other countries where they've been doctors, lawyers, business owners. I had a woman from Germany who ran a dental practice before she became a teacher. It's quite an amazing group of people we have at Georgia State. So our programs are online to accommodate people who are in the business profession, but you bet we have parties where we get together so that we can have that interpersonal interaction, because I'm telling you, world language teachers, that's where the party is at. There's going to be good food and dancing with world language teachers. And here's a group we met together to have a little graduation party at a park. You create a digital teaching portfolio, and that is all I have for you about teaching.
Thank you so much, Dr. Garrett-Rucks. Wow, a lot of takeaways from those 3 presentations. I was taking notes, and I got internships this summer, remote and flexible work schedules as an interpreter, and a lot of passion from all of these presenters. And Dr. Garrett-Rucks is highlighting the reality of teaching, meaning great pay, and a bit of a challenge, but you have resources to help you. So this was all really wonderful information. Thank you all so much. We will shift now into the Q&A session. I know I wanted to go back. I saw a question for Catherine about an opportunity with law at the Latin American Association. Catherine, do you want to repeat that question and then answer it?
Sure. So the question, I'm scrolling back up, was from Katia Zuniga Gallegos. And I'm going to send a screenshot with more information in response to that question, but then let me just go over a little bit more. So we are accepting interns in our immigration services department. So those folks who intern with us will help with immigration relief applications, translations, because a lot of our clients are Spanish speaking. They might have documents in Spanish that need to be translated to English for the courts, and then other kind of related duties. And it's great for those of you that are interested in going to law school. So I put a screenshot of more information there. And if you want to send me an email and want to ask more questions about it, I'm happy to answer questions around that or any of our other opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I just didn't want that person to log off without hearing their question answered. So again, audience members, please do share your questions in the chat. I'm going to ask one here, and then I'll look over to the chat. So we learned a lot about everyone's organization, also heard about their passion for what they're doing. So let's talk about the skills that you've learned in your professional life. So all the different careers and jobs that you've had. So what are those skills that have been vital to opening career opportunities for you? And we'll start with you, Marcelo.
Well, obviously being bilingual, it's like the base for what I do. But more than being bilingual, when you're an interpreter, when you're a translator, we strive, and I don't like to use the word perfection because I don't think perfection really exists. It's just like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But we try to be as accurate as possible. And the more, for example, one of my passions is to read. And when you're in this profession, the more you read, the better you become. And so for me, that has been one of the main skills. But also for my career as an interpreter, public speaking has been also a big part of this profession. It is a skill that I know it doesn't come naturally for everyone, but if you're in this profession, you have to be able to stand in front of people and do, interpretation. Sometimes you have to do it live. I have done interpretation for a TV channel in Spanish where I was interpreting actually a conference during COVID given by the governor of Georgia. So I would say those are, the two more important skills: accuracy in language and being able to feel comfortable in a group of people. If you're doing translations, you do have other tools, because with interpretation, you have to do it, on the spot. You don't have sometimes the chance to say, hold on, let me find what is the most accurate translation for this word. When you're doing translations, you can take the time, but when you're doing interpretation, you find the closest word that would convey that meaning, and you have to do it on the spot. So that's the difference, but those are some of the skills.
Thank you so much. Catherine, do you want to go next?
I'll definitely echo Marcelo's comments about skills, especially for those of you that are native or heritage speakers in your own language. That is something that no one can take away from you. And you're incredibly lucky, especially if you are, bilingual in your native language and English. Because those of us that are not, we have to work really hard to get there. And then we have to figure out how to break into, your worlds to gain trust and so much more. So it's definitely a huge asset that you bring to the table, no matter where you go. And then other skills coming from nonprofit, we are similar to kind of the teacher and education industry, working with people, for people. So really just kind of being perseverant and being willing to be inventive and figure things out. There are lots of things when Dr. Garrett-Rucks was talking about, the first 2 years of teaching are hard. I think the first 2 years of any job can be really hard. And you kind of have to stick with it to figure out if it's worth it and to figure out if that is your niche and where you fit. Like my first 2 years here at the Latin American Association certainly were not easy. They're a lot better now. So it definitely takes a while to figure that out.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Dr. Garrett-Rucks, would you like to share some skills that you've learned?
I think people seek teachers out because you develop interpersonal skills and you develop empathy. And by the way, if you quit a job in teaching, it's called breaking a contract, and you get blacklisted. So it's a pretty serious thing when you take a job for a year. I was advised in the beginning when I'm like, oh, I'll just get my teaching certificate and, try it for a year and see what it's like. And people told me, well, you should do it for at least 2 or 3 years, or else it looks like you quit, like you couldn't handle it. And that advice holds true. It's sad to say when people leave the profession, I understand why they leave it. And I value when people come back to me and just say, I've done my time and I'm moving on. And sometimes they come back, but I have never seen a teacher with more than 3 years experience suffer from not finding a job. If you could manage a classroom for 3 years, business knows that you're tough and that you can interact with people appropriately. You get great leadership skills, great presentational skills. So yes, those. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I saw a couple of questions in the chat about licensing, certification, and so forth. So here's a question that maybe both Marcelo and Dr. Garrett-Rucks can answer. So what advice do you have for heritage speakers who don't have formal language training? Marcelo, would you like to start?
Sure. Get some training in that language. I'll give you an example. I didn't grow up bilingual, so I started to learn English when I was 18, and that's when I moved to the United States to learn English. So before I moved, I didn't speak any English. And so once I learned, I thought, well, I need to focus on learning English, which is my weaker language, and I don't have to worry about Spanish. And then once I started interpreting, I realized that if I didn't practice and if I didn't read and continue to read in Spanish, I was going to have some issues because, as I said before, it's like a workout for the brain, and you always or you constantly have to feed your brain with knowledge. So if you're a heritage speaker, yes, you need to get formally trained in Spanish, but also in English. And I mean, languages are not just about words; they're about culture. There are some expressions that exist in one language because of the culture, and you need to understand those cultures in order to be more accurate when you are speaking another language. So always keep up with both languages.
Great advice. Thank you. Dr. Garrett-Rucks?
Well, you're hitting my passion here with heritage speakers. We as a profession, we've done research, and my history with it was when I was in San Diego teaching French. I remember a fellow teacher was like, oh, we have to get the heritage speakers out of Spanish 1. And I was like, why? And I feel like Spanish heritage speakers who have this power if they can communicate. If you can communicate, if you're calling home to talk to your family and you're speaking Spanish, you're ready to be a teacher. What we want to do is to show you, okay, this is how a more formal version of the language is spoken so that people around the diaspora, the Spanish-speaking diaspora, can understand each other. Heritage speakers often have mastered a familiar language. For an example, when I talk to my husband, I say, hey, you wanna go to a movie? You wanna go to a movie? I don't say, do you want to go to a movie? And so understanding how to speak a more formalized version of the language is important, but historically it's been very Spain focused, Spanish instruction. Fortunately, in the year 2000, we don't do that anymore in the US, and most of the textbooks focus on Latin America. And our next step is to support heritage speakers to bring the language that they have and to advance on it rather than criticizing them for the language they bring. The most painful thing for me is when I have someone take a GACE exam. It's a proficiency exam. You need to be a teacher. And they're like, how could I have failed this? I just got off the phone with my grandma in Peru. Like, I've been speaking this language my whole life. Ugh. And the pain that that brings to people. We are training teachers now to not mentally damage people who are questioned as a legitimate speaker of English because they might have a little accent in English, and then they're questioned as a legitimate speaker of Spanish. And ultimately, heritage speakers can go through an emotional crisis of, I have no language I can call my own. And we really are preparing teachers to address that and to support heritage speakers to become more successful as teachers of Spanish.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll talk about tangible steps now. So what would you say are tangible steps that students can take while still, in college to improve their chances? Or if they're recent graduates, what can they do as of now to improve their chances of landing an internship or a future job in your organization, or, becoming a teacher in that case? Maybe we'll start with Catherine for that one.
Sure. So at the Latin American Association and at a lot of other nonprofits in the There are lots of different volunteer opportunities, internship opportunities, programs, ways to get involved. So I just recommend seeking those out, and making sure that you meet someone that's working there, express your interests, and they can usually guide you to who's in charge of internships, to who's in charge of hiring. We have a lot of students that attended GSU that interned with us and are social workers with us now. I think I have 3 or 4 GSU social work interns right now from the MSW program. At least one in our immigration department as well. And I've had some other ones around the organization in different departments and programs. So we love our interns, we love our volunteers, and a lot of folks kind of found their way to the LAA either through being involved in a program or being involved as a volunteer intern.
Wonderful. Marcelo, do you have any tips about tangible steps that students can take to start a career as an interpreter or a translator?
Yes, so to start a career as an interpreter, you have to get a license, and the license will depend on the field that you want to specialize. You can specialize in more than one field. There is the core interpretation certification that is through the Georgia Commission on Interpreters. Georgia Commission on Interpreters. You can Google them, and they'll have the information and the schedule. You have to take a class. You have to pass a written exam, which is in English. I think it's about 200 questions, and it's all vocabulary, but also slangs and questions about the course system. And then after that, there is an oral exam, which normally takes about 45 minutes, and that is on side translation, consecutive interpretation, and simultaneous. And so you would have to get 80% on each section to become a course certified interpreter, and after that you can work as an interpreter. To get certified with medical, there are also 2 organizations that you can Google them. One is the certification for medical interpreters, and the other one is a certification for healthcare interpreters. Also, to work as a medical interpreter, the minimum requirement right now is to take a 40-hour class, which if you Google it, you can also find different approved 40-hour classes that can get you started as a medical interpreter. And for translations, you would have to get also a certification. Most of our translators, they got the certification through ATA, that's the American Translators Association. If you go to the website, you can find out all the information on how to get certified with them. But I know that there are other certifications through different universities. I believe Georgia State has also a certification for translations, if I'm not mistaken. But those are the basic steps.
Thank you so much. Yes, there is a certification process here, a certificate at Georgia State. So thanks for sharing that, Marcelo. And it looks like that Dr. Garrett-Rucks has put lots of tangible steps and also some links in the chat. So thank you for that. We have about 5 minutes left. So any questions from the audience, please enter those questions now. And otherwise, I'll ask this last question. So Global Career Series is the name of this event. So I'll ask all of you, is global competence an important skill in your organization? And if so, I'm guessing it is. What does that look like? And how do you know when someone has that? Catherine, do you want to start? Or Marcelo, either one.
Well, definitely it's a good skill to have. I mean, in my profession, especially now with the agencies, we serve not only the Hispanic community, which would be the community that I'm more familiar with, but also communities from, all around the world. And it feels like every day we are learning something, because especially for us doing medical interpretation, each culture, it's different. Each culture has their own set of needs, and it is very important for us to be sensitive to cultures that do things or have traditions that are different than ours, because one of the main issues when we communicate is not that we don't understand the words, is that we don't understand why the person acts or reacts this way, because we're not used to their way of doing things, with it's cultural. So learning cultural competency is definitely a key, especially nowadays in 2023 with globalization and the way we are connected. It's very, very important to be aware of all these differences.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine.
Sure. I would argue that global competence is important in anywhere where you end up, whether or not you're using your language skills or not. I was an anthropology major, so I find it important to understand nuance of everyone's culture, whether that's, their hometown culture, their home country culture, or their familial culture. Being empathetic and really working to be present with people. Like, I think that's really important in terms of global competence, especially here at our organization. We have, at the Latin American Association, we operate in the US, but then I have, colleagues from all over Latin America. And then we work in an international space here in Atlanta with other organizations that serve immigrants and refugees. So very important to be globally competent.
Thank you. Dr. Garrett-Rucks, the final thought?
I love that answer, Catherine. So yeah, perspective shifting is what research shows global competence is. Can you really see beyond what the other person is seeing? And to learn that, I think that's part of the bilingual superpower, is that you've lived in two different cultures and two different languages. And research shows it's a transferable skill, which is partly why I love promoting foreign language, world language learning, is that you learn to shift perspectives both across cultures and within. And it's just such an incredible skill for any profession.
Thank you so much. I echo that sentiment. So thank you, Catherine, Dr. Garrett-Rucks, and Marcelo for sharing your time with us today and telling us about the wonderful and wealth of opportunities at your organizations. We really appreciate your valuable tips, your advice for current students and recent graduates. So again, thank you for participating in the GSU Global Career Series of Spring 2023. I also want to thank the audience members for attending this session. We hope you enjoyed it, and we invite you to join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the International and Community-Based Organizations in Atlanta. That will feature the Clarkston Community Center, International Rescue Committee, CARE USA, Japan America Society of Georgia, Asian Americans Advancing Justice Atlanta. Many of the Global Career Series organizations will be recruiting students at the in-person, that's an in-person event, at the Atlanta Global Studies Symposium on Friday, April 14th, where you can come and shake hands with representatives at the GSU College of Law. And that's between 9:30 and 10:45 a.m. To learn more, go to the link in the chat. All Global Career Series sessions will be available on the Atlanta Global Studies Center YouTube channel. That link will also be in the chat. And finally, I'd like to thank the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, University Career Services, the Global Studies Program, and the GSU Study Abroad programs for organizing this series. Hope everyone has a fantastic afternoon. And again, Catherine, Marcelo, Dr. Garrett-Rucks, thank you so much for sharing these valuable resources with students. And we hope you're all able to tune in tomorrow. And if not, go check out the recordings on YouTube. Thank you again.
Thank you all.